What's going on, Flare Tech fam? It's your boy T Glenn, and I am going to be bringing you a tutorial on how to make the family tree signs that I sell on my Etsy shop. Excuse me. So, um, let's just get into it. The software that I tend to use is called Inkscape, and it's free to download online. If you just go to Inkscape.com, or if you Google Inkscape on the internet, then you'll be able to find it. And you can use it on Mac, on PC, and a Linux system if you have one. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is I'm going to show you guys how to set up Inkscape really quick, because you see yours might look a little bit different than mine does with this all these options and stuff on the right hand side. So I'm going to show you guys the ones that are most relevant. For us, we're going to be using the Align and Distribute. We're going to be using Fill and Stroke, and then we're also going to be using Text and Font. So where you can find those options is if you go to Object, then you can see Fill and Stroke right here, and you'll see that it pops up there. And then you want to go to Object, Align and Distribute. You'll see that that pops up there too. And then the last one is going to be Text, and then Text and Font, and you'll see that that pops up. And what tends to happen is a lot of people, it will show up as like a bunch of options, and it's not going to be categorized in these nice little windows like this. So the way that you can do that is if you take you click on the name right here, and then you drag it to where you see, it's kind of hard to see, but the little rectangle in the center, you want to drag it there, and do the same for all of the others. Drag it into that center, you'll see that little square pop up, a rectangle pop up, and then it should categorize everything into these nice little windows for you. The last thing that we're going to want to do to set up is going to be with the document properties. And so these are going to be helpful because if you're in the US, or if you're just used to working in certain units, the default units might be pixels or millimeters or something like that, but you can actually change the units that you want here. For us, we're going to be working in inches. So I'm going to select inches, and then again, inches. And then I have my width and height set to the size of my Glowforge bed. You can choose to do that as well if you want to, but it is not a requirement for you to do that. You can actually turn off the page border altogether if you want to. So. All right, so the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with the top layer first. Okay, and so for reference, I'm going to pull up a picture of one of my items right here. This is the one that you can find on my Etsy shop. We're not going to be doing all of these, but we're going to just make a sign with like 10 or so names. But this is the item that we're going to be making. This top layer that says We Heart Grammy, that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So in the design files, I've given templates for the top, middle, and bottom pieces, as well as some pre-designed top pieces, as well as some of the pre-designed hearts. And I have them from 3 hearts all the way up to 18 hearts. So, like I said, we're going to be working with the top layer first. And so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that into my canvas here. And this is what it looks like. So, and I'm going to be using a couple different I'm going to be using a couple different hotkeys, and I'll pop it up somewhere on the screen for you to see what the hotkeys are. I'll also show them before I use them. So as you can see, everything is all just one item or one object. And so the reason is because when you drag it from a SVG file onto a blank canvas, it becomes grouped. So what we're going to want to do is we can go to object and then ungroup, and then you'll see that it all becomes separate objects here. So you can individually move them as you please. Okay, so what we're going to be doing first is we can just set We Heart Grandma, and so I'm gonna I want this to be in all caps just because I like the way that all caps looks. You can choose to do something different if you like, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and change it to all caps. And so what you'll see now is that it is kind of big, but now I kind of messed up with the heart. So we're going to want to try to move our heart over as best as we can. And one pro tip is that if you want to move it in one direction and one direction only, like right now, we can kind of move in all directions, right? But if you hold down the control key and then if you slide your cursor, then you'll see that it's locked in one direction no matter how I do this. And you can choose which direction you want it to be in. So just a helpful little tip. So what we're going to be doing is I want to show how these are all like right now you have the color in and it's the fill. So you can see that the fill is brown. But I'm actually going to turn the fill off and then I'm going to add a stroke instead. And so a stroke is just this outline that we see here. And then if you go to stroke style, you can see that everything is kind of not the same stroke at all. So we're going to go to millimeters, and then I tend to use 0.2 millimeters because that's about, it's good enough to be able to see all the lines. So, okay, so what we're going to do next is we can see that right now everything is kind of overlapped, and so we want to get rid of that overlap. So once we have our heart in the right place, and then we have our text that we want, then we're going to go ahead and we want to group these together first. And so again, you can go to object and then group, or you can press Control G. So I'm just going to use the shortcut Control G. And so we're going to do that, and then we want this whole thing to be centered with respect to the frame. So I'm going to, in order to select everything, you can either go to one corner and click and drag to select everything, or what you can do is you can hold down the shift key and then you can click on one object and then click on another object while you're holding down the shift key. And then now we're going to be using that first or one of the other things that we have here, align and distribute, so menus. And so what we're going to do is we want it to be aligned with the last selected item, which was We Heart Grandma. And then we're going to hit this one, which is center on the vertical axis. Let's do that. And then now we see that it is centered. This entire text is centered with respect to the frame. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to want to ungroup. And again, you can go to Object, Ungroup, or you can do Shift Control G or Control U. And so that is going to unselect everything for you again. And what we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to turn this into an object. And so the reason we're going to want it to turn into an object is because our laser cutters can't understand or interpret text as of right now. So converting it into an object is going to help when we send it over to the laser, as well as when we want to weld these items to the frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the text We Heart Grandma, and we're going to go to path, and then we're going to go to object to path. And so I want to show you what this is going to look like before we do that. And the way I'm going to do that is with display mode. So I want to go to display mode, and then I'm going to go to outline. And a shortcut for that is also just Control 5. And you'll be able to see that now it's an outline. Then if I press Control 5, you can toggle between all the different view features. But yeah, so we're going to use outline for now. And you can see that it's still text. It's not an object yet. It's just a text block. And so that's because it's filled in, even though everything else is outlined. So, and you'll see that when we go to path and then object to path, now We Heart Grandma becomes an outline, which is what we want. We want it to be a path. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to want to, now that we have this object, we're going to want to break it apart, because right now it's all grouped, and having it grouped is not going to be helpful for us. So let's break it apart. And then ungroup. Now you can see each letter can be moved individually. So what we want to do now is we want to take all of our text, select it, and then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to path, union, and path combine. And the reason we want to do that is because it'll make it easier when we are welding our objects, which is what we're going to do next. But first, we're going to want to duplicate the our text here, all of our features right here. And it'll make sense why we're going to duplicate it now a little bit later. But for right now, we're going to just go ahead and press Control D to duplicate. And now you can see we have two. And then you're going to want to hold down Shift and select your frame. And once you have that first layer and the frame selected, then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Path, Union, and Path Combine. And so if we move this entire thing, we can see that our text is now welded, which is exactly what we want. However, what we don't really want, or what we don't like, is this how it's welded into the frame, but we don't actually see the bottoms of the letters. And so I'm going to show you guys how to do the bottom, and even like with the heart. So I'm going to show you guys how to add those really quick. So and that's what we needed this duplicate for. This duplicate We Heart Grandma text at the bottom for. So now what we're going to want to do is let's change the color so that we can see it better. And so the way that I just did that is if you hold down Shift and then you click on the color that you want, you'll be able to change the color. So, and then if you don't hold down if you don't hold down Shift, then it will actually add a fill. So you can add and remove fills and strokes by using the Shift key and this little color palette down here. So what do we want? We want to add these small parts down here. So let's do that. All right. What we're going to do first is let's go ahead and use our Bezier curve tool. Click on this on the left hand side. And then we're going to want to create just a straight line. And for this, you're going to want to make sure that you have, and you want to enable snapping. And you want to make sure you do snap nodes, paths, and handles. That's going to make this process a lot easier. Make sure you have those selected. And then we're going to snap that node. And then we're going to go over here and then create a straight line on that node. And then hit enter. And then you have now made a straight line. You can see right there that it is different than the frame line. So what we're going to do is now we have our line selected, we have our We Heart Grandma text selected, and so we're going to go ahead and go to Path and Division. And what that's going to do, as you'll see, is it's going to actually create separate objects directly across the line here. Okay, and so now you see that this is separate from this. Okay, but what happened as well is that it also has this line here, and we're going to have to get rid of that. So let's go ahead and figure that out. So let's go ahead and delete these ones here. Okay, and so now you'll see that we have this bottom part for all of our letters in our heart, but this top piece is still selected. So what you're going to want to do now is let's go to our Edit Paths by Node tool. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to want to first select our object, and then what we're going to want to do is we want to select these two nodes here. So you can there's several ways you can do it. Drag over the nodes and they're selected. You can manually click hold shift to select multiple items at a time. Or what you can do is you can just press in the center and it will automatically select the two nodes that are between where you click. So let's do that. And then we're going to go up to our break path at selected node, click that, and then now you'll see that now the path is broken. And then what we're going to do is we're going to want to select that area one more time, and then you're going to want to hit the delete key. And now you see that this has all of it's got our line here, and it looks like a continuation of the letter W. So let's go ahead and do that for all of our letters. Okay, so now as you can see, we have our stroke lines, and it looks great right at the bottom of our We Heart Grandma text. Okay, so now that that's done, we've just finished the top part of our family tree sign. So congratulations. Now, make sure that you periodically save your work, just to make sure that, in case there's anything that happens, Inkscape is still open source software, so it may, crash from time to time. It doesn't happen that often, but you always want to be safe. So make sure that you save your data so that you can avoid any issues. All right, so now that we are done with our top part, let's go ahead and start on our middle part. So, um, in the file, in the folder that you guys downloaded, you'll see that I gave hearts numbers numbered between 3 and 18. You can use whichever one you want, or you can create one of your own if you don't like the ones that I made. The way that you would do that is you could just use the same path combine and path union and path combine technique that we used in the last step. When you place all of your hearts in the place that you want them to be in, then you can create your own heart if you want. However, let's go ahead and just use 10 hearts for now. So I'm going to bring that in. All right, and so now you'll see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hearts. So what I'm going to want to do is, now that we have this, I'm going to just come up with a set of random names that we can use for this. So I'm going to use my own name. All right, cool. So, um, so what you're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and go to the text and font selector here. And the reason I prefer this as opposed to, if you go into the text editor, you can choose the drop down here. It's because it's just easier for me to work with. Everything is like right here. So I just like it to be over here. But you can always just go to the text editor and select all your fonts and everything right here. But so what I tend to use for this file is a font called Alessandra, and you can download and purchase that font online if you want to. It doesn't come standard, but honestly, any font, any script font is going to look really nice on this item. So you can just go ahead and use whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. But I'm gonna go ahead and use Alessandra. So I'm going to do that, and then you can see that it turns all of our text into this nice cursive font. However, we still have text. And like we learned in the last step, when we want our outlines to show, we don't want it to be a text object. We want it to be a path. So let's go ahead and select this. Let's make sure that all of these aren't touching. I see that this is kind of touching a little bit. Okay, yeah, just to be safe. Okay, so got all of our text here. And then I'm going to go to path, object to path, and now you can see that it becomes an outline, which means it's a path. And then I am going to go to path, break apart, and then ungroup. And now you can see that you can move each letter individually. Now, it looks like this may be where we need to stop, and then we can go ahead and start putting them into our hearts. But what tends to happen is when you have script fonts and you break them apart like that, you can see that they're, when we go to our outline, they're actually not connected, even though they appear to be connected. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do that same technique. So let's go ahead and do this, path, union, path, combine. And now you can see that all of our text is fluid and it is going to work. And see, the reason why this is bad is because when we go into our design software, our Glowforge UI or whatever laser cutter you're using, what you'll notice is that this little overlap here is going to look really ugly when you engrave it. And so we're going to want to make sure that all of those are fluid and flush. So let's go ahead and do that for each of our names. All right. Now that we have all of our names, you can see that they are all there and they're all fluid and connected. So now we'll go ahead, let's go ahead and do this, and then we are going to place them inside of our hearts. And so here's the thing, guys. So with these, you want to make sure that they're centered, but in all honesty, you know, like, you can really eyeball it. These things are so tiny that no one's really gonna notice if it's a millimeter askew or something like that from the center. So just use your best approximation to make that happen. You know, that's what I would suggest doing. What you could also do is, you know, you can try to recreate like this shape, or, like, you know, just get a bounding box or something to, like, make sure that everything is fluid and centered. But honestly, I think that eyeballing it is just going to be just as good here. So, and it'll save you some time as well. Let's move these up here so we can have easier access to them. All right. So now let's go ahead and place all of our names inside of our hearts. Okay, and so now I got to this point, and I wanted to point out to you guys that, like, you see, this one is the same size as all the other ones, but it doesn't exactly fit inside the heart. So you're gonna want to just, we can reduce the size just a little bit, and, you know, I tend to just go ahead and resize them, just because, again, you know, everything is kind of small anyway, so a slight change in size is not going to ruin anything. So, but if you do want everything to be the same size, then you can always, oops, yeah, if you want everything to be the same size, then you can always um, change, you know, the font size before you turn them into paths. Okay, so now we have our middle piece. So, you know, once you're finished with this, then again, make sure that you save, double check everything to make sure it's all lined up the way that you want it to be. And as you can see, both of these obviously don't fit inside of the Glowforge bed size. So what I'd like to do is I'll group them first, and then I'm going to rotate them actually this way. And this is the way that I engrave all the pieces. I will rotate them counterclockwise, and then just lay them into the laser bed this way. And the last part is the easiest part because you don't have to edit it. But the last part is the bottom. And so the cool thing is that, unless you want to edit the lines, this really doesn't need any editing. So let's go ahead and just do this. And one important thing that I forgot to say, but I did, was obviously I changed the color of these lines because when you import this file into your Glowforge UI, you're going to want to change the color, because if everything's black, then it's going to register everything as one type of cut. And for these ones, you're going to want these to be score cuts and not full cuts. Okay, and then these lines as well, these red ones, you're going to want these to be scored instead of full cuts. So just make sure that you're aware of that. All right, everyone, that is all that I have for you today. So please, if you like the video, please be sure to actually physically like it. Make sure that you comment as well if it was helpful, and then subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying to do a lot more of these tutorial videos and other helpful videos to help you guys become better designers. And let me know if you guys have any questions or what you'd like to see from me as well. I know that some of these things can be a little daunting, especially if you're just beginning. So yeah, just let me know with a comment below, and then share the video with others if you can, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Peace.